Hey now, good morning PSW staff, clients, friends, join us. Film Score on Monday, music supervision, where we look at a famous scene or just a scene, and I take out the music and you provide me with a score that's just as good, a substitute score. We've done so many of these. It's like a weekly exercise, and it's been so much fun. And really proud of your work. And you send it to me, and then we take a look on Friday. We all watch together. I think just because I get a little restless, the last two were good American summer-like movies, and I was like, okay, now we have to go to a different place. Otherwise, we're not learning if you just do the same thing over and over. So I want to mix it up by doing an Italian film today, and we're going to choose a different piece of music. Because many times what I want you guys to do is to find music that you wouldn't normally listen to and give it to me, and then I place it with the scene. So that's part of that exercise, is for you to listen to new music, to be exposed to new music. So that's kind of my philosophy. Anywho, so having all said all that, today we're going to look at the Italian film. We're going to look at an Italian-Russian film from 1987. Today we'll be looking at Dark Eyes. Dark Eyes refers to a Russian song from the mid-19th century, and the movie's based on Chekhov's stories, some of his stories, mostly The Lady with the Little Dog, but Chekhov's one of the most famous 19th century short story writers. We all know Chekhov, and directed, mostly made by Nikita Mikhalkov. Soviet-Russian actor, filmmaker, director, directed this. Beautiful sets, beautiful costumes. Takes place in 1903, so it's a period movie, but comes out in 1987, starring the wonderfully handsome and great actor Marcello Mastroianni. We looked at Marcello with our Nina Rota and Fellini class a year ago or so. He got to start with La Dolce Vita, and Fellini kind of discovered him, and although, he was a very handsome, charismatic guy, really a great actor too, a great dramatic actor, but could also do, funny playful characters really well, in a sense where no matter what he does on the screen, he's still semi-lovable in some way. I don't know, that's just kind of God-given charisma or something like that. But he is a great actor. So it's set in Italy and Russia around 1903. And he's a married man, married to this very rich lady, and they live in this big castle, and she's, but he's kind of been a wanderer and hasn't done much with his life, and everyone thinks he's kind of, or, his wife and her mother think that he's kind of just this clown, kind of funny little type character that didn't really have a career, didn't do anything, so he feels neglected and leaves to go to this spa. And at the spa, he finds this beautiful Russian woman, and realizes that he's madly in love with her. So the movie opens, though, with a gentleman coming in on a honeymoon on a boat, and he comes into the little dining room area, and they're not open yet, and because he wants a drink. And another gentleman, Marcello, who's a little bit older, says, "Come and join me." So they join each other and talk, and he tells this gentleman, I'm just looking at this photograph, and the photograph was taken of his wife and his family at this, little estate castle that they had. And so most of the movie is all in flashbacks, because he's telling this story, his story, and he's telling all of his kind of encounters with different people, but mostly that about how he fell in love with this Russian woman, and how he tried so hard to find her, because she leaves him because she's married to an older rich man who doesn't love her, who treats her poorly, and she's very unhappy. But when she meets Marcello, of course, they fall in love. And the next morning she leaves and sends him a letter in Russian, and he doesn't read Russian. And so she says, well, by the time you get this translated, I'll be long gone, because I feel so much for you, but I can't do this because I'm married, I have this other life. And Marcello, of course, says, okay, that's fine. And then he's like, no, I can't stop forgetting about her. I can't forget about her. I can't stop thinking about her. And gets it translated, and she says, I love you, but I can't do this. So he goes to Russia to find her, and he has to find all these different ways of getting and figuring out where she could be, because he needs to tell her this. Beautiful story. Really, some wonderful little things in it.
Non importa. Un altro.
Permettez-moi, madame. Et voilà votre chapeau, madame. Je vous en prie.
Music by Francis Lay. We've talked about Francis Lay, French composer, mostly known for his huge film scores. This is different because, he's known for Love Story, which we kind of talked about. Very famous, that won Best Music, Best Original Score in 1970. Very melodic composer, kind of like Michel Legrand. They're both kind of famous French composers that created, that crossed into the mainstream as well. And then we scored A Man and a Woman. That's Francis Lay. So, brilliant composer. And then, years later, he scores this score, which is mostly classical. It's kind of very melodic, early 20th century melodic classical music. Maybe a little bit like Poulenc, like we talked about, kind of, not atonal classical, very melodic classical. Romantic classical. So the scene, I watched the movie over the weekend a few different times, and I couldn't figure out, because I was going to choose a kissing scene because that's where the theme song of the movie comes in, and then I was like, well, every time I show a foreign movie, you're going to think all they do in foreign movies is kiss intensely. And that's true. It's different than American movies, but this one's going to be different. So what happens is, he does find this woman in Russia, and he talks to her husband, and her husband's kind of just, pompous and arrogant and all these things. And so they do have an encounter in this barn together, because they hadn't seen each other for a long time, maybe a year or so. And he says, I'm going to come back for you, I promise. I just have to go and break it up with my wife. And she says, okay, yes. So, we're really excited. The audience is very excited. But he has to go back from Russia to Italy to break it off. So this is the scene where he's going to, get a horse and get some people to help him go back home. This is a really beautiful scene where he talks about, he's kind of daydreaming, even though it's kind of night, about a lullaby that his mother used to sing him, and how he never wanted to go to sleep at night, but every time, and so he would cover his ears up, and so he wouldn't have to sleep, but he would inevitably fall asleep because his mother. And there's something very infantile about Marcello's character, in a way that's a little bit lovable, because he's sweet and naive and romantic, but perhaps a little bit is stuck in sort of a childlike, I want this now. but he realizes he's missed a lot of things in his life, and he has a lot of regret as he's reflective, thank God, because he's reflective about all these things that he's missed out on, because he doesn't go back to find her, because it's very sad when he goes back to Italy. His wife says, I know you've been having an affair, you have to tell me right now. And he says no. He does a Michael Corleone where he's like, I'll let you ask this one question. But he lies to her and says, no, I'm not in love with anybody else, because maybe he wants to make his wife happy too, even though they don't have a particularly close, happy marriage. So he's a man full of regrets. And the guy he's been talking to at the table the whole time is kind of lets him have it at the end and says, you know, I've worked so hard, and this woman that I'm on the honeymoon with has never loved me, and I've asked her 8 times to marry me, and finally this time she said yes, and she said, you know what, I don't love you, but I'll remain faithful to you. And he sort of is humiliated by this, and as opposed to Marcello, who's had everything. And he says, I've had everything and I've had nothing.
Io ho avuto tutto e niente. Né una vera casa, né una vera famiglia. Neanche mia figlia che mi assomiglia come una goccia d'acqua. Non mi ricordo di niente. Se morissi in questo momento il Padre Eterno mi dicesse: Romano, cosa ricordi della tua vita? La ninna nanna che mi canterà mia madre quando ero piccolo. Il volto di Elisa la prima notte. E le nebbie della Russia.
What a thing to say, right? He has everything, but having everything, unless you have something, you know, important in your heart that makes you move forward, whatever it is, you know, it's like having all the money in the world doesn't buy happiness. I mean, that's a bad analogy, but that's probably the analogy. Being loved by millions of people doesn't make one happier necessarily. It's the right people, it's the right love. So he admits this. And of course, with a nice little twist, after the little conversation, the restaurant's open, and so he says, bring your wife in, the one that you're on honeymoon with. And of course, it's Marcello's Russian woman that he had been in love with. And we don't see that. We just see her about to, you know, come back in. So, it's a great little ending. So with this little scene where he's going back to his wife, it's a beautiful little Italian lullaby. So let's take a look at the scene as Marcello's leaving Russia to go back to Italy to tell his wife he's got to leave her, even though he doesn't. And see how pretty this is.
Fai la ninna, fai la nanna, puppo bello della mamma. Ninna oh, ninna oh. Fai la ninna, fai la nanna, con sto figlio c'è più pace. Fai la ninna, fai la nanna, puppo bello della mamma. Ninna oh, ninna oh.
Beautiful. It's an Italian folk song lullaby that is just really pretty, and great scenery of him just kind of going back to childhood in a sense. Being, you know, and the movie ends with this again because there's something infantile about Marcello's character, and maybe the last time, or the last good thing that he had, was the voice of his mother, or a lullaby, or something like that, where there's a lot of loss and regret and reflection in this movie. That's why And that's why foreign films are really great. They're a little different than American because there's more sensitivity. There's more open to interpretation more. So let's take a look at the scene without the music. Still very nice. It could be anything. I mean, but it's not going to be anything. I want you guys to see if you can find a good lullaby. It can be in Russian, it can be in French, it can be in Italian. I'm going to be a snob. I'm going to say I don't want it to be in English because this is a foreign film. So any other language is fine, but I just don't want any English. I don't like that. So I want you to, see if you can find a lullaby in another language that could go with this beautiful scene. He's very vulnerable here in this scene. Very vulnerable. So it's a beautiful movie. I know, most of this was spent me explaining the plot, but there's so many funny moments in it.
Aprimi. Apri, Elisa.
Romano? Ma che stai facendo?
Vedi, sto misurando il tappeto.
Ah, misuri i tappeti.
Sei?
E perché misuri i tappeti?
E perché...
Come sei caldo,
certo, ho misurato già tutti quelli che sono di là.
Ah, già,
Qui,
capisco.
ogni mese bisogna cambiare i tappeti, non si sa perché, ma adesso mi hai fatto perdere il conto. Manlio
non
dov'è?
volevo, Manlio. Manlio!
No.
Manlio, vieni qui. Ma sì, ma sì, è
dopo,
lei.
insomma, dobbiamo misurare
Manlio,
i
vieni da
tappeti.
Romano.
Ma cosa state facendo?
I tappeti
Ma
li misuriamo.
Li cambiano
Adesso
ogni mese,
dobbiamo...
quindi lo aiutiamo. Ma sì,
Dobbiamo misurare i
ecco,
tappeti, eravamo
perché?
rimasti a 6.
Aiutiamo,
Non perdiamo
ma
tempo,
non ti
su.
preoccupare,
6,
dobbiamo arrivare.
7, 8, 9,
Ma non sarebbe meglio
10,
andare giù al concerto e poi
11,
una...
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Touching moments in it.
Io te lo assicuro, lei non si crederai perché sono felice.
Ma chi
Tanto
piange
felice.
quando è felice?
Romana?
Sì.
Scusa, Romana. A lei tutto questo sembrerà strano, ma io non ho l'abitudine alla felicità.
Stia buono.
E così è successo che tutto il giorno oggi avevo in groppo in colla.
Questo succede quando si è giovane.
Romano,
Io le voglio bene, sa.
mi vergogno.
Lei è tanto
Romano, mi crede. Mi vergogno a farmi vedere da lei. È stato così gentile. Tanto gentile. E io gli sono tanto grata per tutto quello che ha fatto per me. Romano mio.
Allora, adesso
Romano,
basta.
non dimenticherò mai la sua comprensione.
Basta di piangere. Ci sono qui, su. Deve fare un bel sorriso. Lei è così carina quando sorride.
E che mi succede?
And one of my favorites. So I'm really happy we got to Dark Eyes because I just love this, and the score is just gorgeous. So get it to me, Tuesday afternoonish would be Bonnie-rific if you could, and then we'll see the results for Friday. And this week is we're gonna make it a great week. Make it great. Okay, tomorrow. Okay, bye.